Hey YouTube, this is Tim Cain, School for Self-Taught, and like I was saying before I started the recording, I am fully self-taught. I dropped out of high school. I did not go to college. I did not interview, I visited a college that had a game development program, but because I dropped out of high school, I didn't end up going to it. I was entirely self-taught, at least until I got my first job at Red Hook Studios working on Darkest Dungeon, and learned a lot from fantastic guys there. And then I kind of went on my own separate way again, and it was self-teaching myself. Couldn't land a job, so I, long story short, moved to Poland, got another job at a company for a little while, learned some things from those guys, jumped to a different company that I spent a few years at and learned a lot there, made some great friends, and then I worked at a place very short term. Then I had to quit due to some personal reasons, but they were very, very helpful, and I learned a lot just from the few months that I worked with them. They were exceptional individuals. And now I'm kind of back to being self-taught and hopefully teaching you guys some things. So, Tim Cain on self-taught versus school. Let's see what he has to say. But don't forget to like, subscribe. Don't do that. Not unless you really, really enjoy the video.
Hi, everyone. It's me, Tim.
Hi, Tim.
Today, I want to talk about the pros and cons of going to school versus being self-taught if you want to go in the game industry. And remember, this is from my point of view of going to school to learn programming. But this probably has equal measure for art and design and other
Can I give my
roles that you...
Can I give my hot take 30 seconds in? You know, you guys know this is my thing, right? I play the video, I pause it for after 30 seconds or 10 seconds, and then I talk for 20 minutes. For me, but it's because I like to state where my stance is and then see where Tim can shuffle that or throw in his own expertise, which he has way more of. For me, a lot of game dev can be taught nowadays on your own with courses, YouTube, Twitch. Maybe you're learning on this channel. Thank you for doing that. School is great for networking because networking is one of the most important aspects of game dev if you're trying to get a job in the industry. It's who you know. Make important connections. School is great for that because you meet with people that are just like you, in the same school as you, trying to learn the same shit as you, and you guys can kind of grow up around each other. You guys can do game jams. You probably have a class project that you work on or multiple. It's exceptional. And then you have all the tools and knowledge from the people in the university to help get you into a job, right? And that education, it does mean something. Not that much, though. What matters most is what you can create and can you prove that you know what you're doing. And a degree doesn't always stress that for game dev. But you have a lot of resources and colleagues that you've already built up from those years at college, whereas with self-taught, you often have to go and get those things on your own. And it sucks. And you're going to have to spend money. You're going to have to go to conferences on your own dime, take the initiative, meet people that you don't know, you've never talked to, and hope that you can craft something useful. Game devs you hear about are people like old indie or semi-indie teams that all sit in a single large room and sympathize with people who don't know what the roles are like. Yeah, I miss sitting in a room with a bunch of game devs. It's one of the greatest experiences you can have in game dev, if you ask me. Just sitting around a bunch of people that are in the same industry as you, which is why going to school or going to conferences is massive. Swedish game dev schools were full of people that just form cliques and don't talk to anybody. Most people probably didn't really aim to be devs after going to a fun programming school either. Why is that military? Did it have anything to do? Is college in Sweden free? Because I've heard similar stories with the free college stuff here in Poland where people kind of just think they need to go get a degree, but then they don't really take it seriously, or once they graduate, they don't do the thing that they got a degree for. And it seems a bit different compared to the US, where it's certainly not free, way overpriced in a lot of cases, and people feel an obligation to, you must do the thing that you got the degree for. And if you don't, it was a waste of time. You get paid for going. That's crazy.
You want to do in games.
All right, Tim, take us.
So let me talk about, for a second, yesterday I talked about a university class that I taught
Yeah,
because I loved being in school, and I've said that. I really
I
liked
don't.
being at UCI, so it was nice to come back and give a little back. A few weeks before that, I talked about how my love for school and all the skills that I think I learned while in school, whether from school or just people I went to school with, the skills that I learned to make games. So this is kind of on top of those. I've been accused in the past, and I'm sure it's happening in comments now, that I'm anti self taught, and that is not true. I went to school. School was great for me. But one of the best programmers I ever worked with was entirely self taught. The programming director at Interplay, Jay Patel, was self taught. And I learned a ton from that man. He was a really, really good programmer. And he knew techniques that I didn't learn in school, which let me go over what I think the pros and cons are
Okay.
of
Yeah.
going to school to learn whatever topic you want to learn about. And that will lead me into some pros and cons, I think, when people are looking for a job or thinking of switching jobs in the
I'm very biased against school, so I'm hoping that he can assuage some of those biases and calm them down. Because I just, especially for game dev, I feel like it's just so unnecessary. It's such a waste of time and money, and you're better off learning alone. But I know I'm biased against that, and I'm probably wrong. So we'll see what Tim says.
in the game industry. So let me talk about pros and cons. I think the obvious pro of going to school is it is something a lot of employers look for. If you have a degree, they're like, oh, good, you have a degree in programming, or you have a degree in art, or you went to Full Sail, or you went to DigiPen. Great.
Programming has its use. I can see that.
But what they're
Design,
really looking for is experience.
yes.
And yes, school is a kind of experience. Work is experience. And I see people go, well, how do I get experience? How do I get work experience if no one will hire me? And I've said this, demos. People who come in
Game
and
jams.
go, I wish to make games and I wish to code user interface. Here's a game demo I made with a really nice user interface. Those people go to the front of the queue.
Yep, they do.
And honestly, there's not a lot stopping you from doing that, especially in
Well,
this.
okay, so making demos is great, right? But I think game jams too because it shows teamwork. It shows you can work with other people. So they're both equally great. One of them shows that you have a lot of knowledge that you can use on your own. Another one shows that you can work well in a team. They're both useful. So I would say do both. 100%. And he's right. You get shunted to the front of the queue. That's why people come into the channel, they say, I want to become a game dev. How do I do it? Make games. On your own, with other people, make games. You're going to have a nearly impossible chance getting a junior job without having any experience. I know it sucks, but that's the way it is. So make games, show your passion. The games don't have to be good. The games don't have to be completed. They can be a bit buggy. They can be old. They can be rough around the edges, right? What matters to a lot of employers, and especially to me, is the journey. I don't want to just see your latest 2 places that you've worked. Sometimes I want to see where you started. Were you making games in Game Maker? Were you writing down, this probably wouldn't be in your CV, but were you making levels on graph paper in school? Mention that in like your cover letter. Show me your journey so that I can see your passion, your mistakes, how you maybe tried to make a game that was too large in scope on your own, and you were able to trim down the scope until you could make a game, and then aim that back up, right? How can you manage your own expectations and your own skill? Went to college, got my BS degree in computer science, not necessary for game dev, but I went because the degree helped me get a good job. However, everything I know about game dev and really what I know today about object-oriented programming, reports of design docs, etc., is all self-taught. Yeah, I think you did a good choice with that. I know for me, when I was like, I want to be a game designer, well, what the fuck is school going to teach me? How to use an engine? Okay, I can do that at home. Like, it's going to suck, but at least I'll save a fuck ton of money doing it. So, yeah, game design for a degree is really weird to me. Especially nowadays, you can get a lot of game design advice by watching, I recommend a channel called Salt Factory. I can share that in chat for you guys. If you guys like long form content, and you must if you're watching my stuff, this guy makes long videos about games. And he just has a really good way of breaking things down, I'm gonna subscribe on my private on my Microraptor channel here actually, and he's not always right. He's giving his opinion, right? But it's still a great way to just break down moment to moment a game and how it functioned and whether or not it still holds up or whether or not it's this part is bad, this part is good. It's really great for game designers to just kind of sit down with someone else and have a deep dive about a game. So I will link that channel for you guys. Highly recommended. At least with standard CS qualification degree, you can fall back to a more boring job if you have to. Great point, Amankira. That's 100% true. All college got me was a piece of paper I had to teach myself the more advanced things I know today. Yeah. Yeah. I've heard some really good game design, or I'm sorry, not game design, but game development curriculums at schools that do a good job of getting people engaged with each other, making small game jams, and things like that. And I think that's awesome. If you can come out of a game development degree in college, already having made 2 to 3 games with your classmates, that's amazing. That's amazing. So, you know, that's awesome. But if you come out of like with a game development degree with just a piece of paper and you've never made a game, you got shafted.
This day and age, got a whole video about that. But there are other pros to going to school other than, hey, that's what people look for. Yeah. First of all, schools and especially universities are very structured places for learning.
That's true.
They've been doing it a long time.
If you're not good at self-taught stuff, they can handle that for you, right?
They provide classes on specific topics, additional study sessions with and without a TA on those particular topics. I was never more frustrated as a grad student than when people said the class was too hard and the teacher wasn't good, and I was the TA and I never saw them I had 2 different sessions a week and I never saw this person.
They never tried.
I don't even know who you are. Yeah. How did you never ever come to a study session and then at the end of the quarter decide this class was bad? So
it's not a good
universities
sign.
are designed to help people study, and it's not just the classes, it's the surroundings. They're very conducive to studying. There are libraries. There are usually big open green areas if you want to sit outside. There's lots of quiet areas to tuck into and study. And lots of other people are doing it too. So it's easy to study when you look around and everybody else is studying too. And that's actually leads me into the thing about being groups. I know a lot of people don't like working in groups, but when you're in a school and you're studying in a group, this is great because you have fellow students you can ask questions to. Maybe they just figured it out and they thought of a way of thinking about it.
Well, oftentimes you're not gonna have to worry about ego either because you know that they have the same amount of experience as you usually. And you're all just in this together. We're all in this together. But it's really true, and that's a great environment that you can have. He never wins the game. My wiser uncles always said college wasn't a place to go to learn. It was a place to go to learn how to learn.
Bullshit. Derivative.
We've gotten this alert.
I absolutely
love 5 times today. It's crazy. Wasn't a place to go to learn. It's a place to learn how to learn. Yeah, and I think that's true. You know, I think that a lot of people struggle to have discipline on their own. Like, I struggle to have discipline when I'm working on my own and when working from home because I work on my computer that I play games on. And so now my brain is pulling me, hey, play games, it's after work hours. But it's like, well, you don't have a job, so what does a work hour even mean? And when you have those classes at specific times, somebody's making your schedule, setting the curriculum, it's kind of a natural transition from the thing you've been doing for the last 12 years with school to have 4 more years of it, but now it kind of matters a bit more, right? And I think that can be way easier for some people than it was for would have been for me. I don't know. I tended to not apply to the things that I wasn't interested in. So for me, going to college was scary because I felt like I was just going to not only flunk out of that like I did with high school and never finish it, but I was going to waste a lot of money. And so for me, it was like this. It was a challenge. For 3 years, I did not really make any progress towards game development after dropping out of high school. I just played games and made excuses for myself until I finally got it together and tried to push forward with something. When I found out that what I liked was modding a game, Darkest Dungeon, and I was good at it. And that kind of sparked me into, okay, now I got hired by Red Hook to work on Darkest Dungeon. Now I have some experience. Now I can try to make my own games again. Well, I'm getting a bit further, but not as far as I was, or not as far as I need to be. So I need to find another job. And it's like, it was just kind of this not vertical ladder of just moving slowly back and forth with a lot of shit and kind of up as I went. Yeah, what a struggle, right? But everybody's got their struggles. I'm sure mine is not nearly as bad as some of yours. Nice catching that funny metal tubes worth 2 gold. Oof. What a free fish.
You can study together. You can work through problems together and figure things out. A lot of people don't do that, and they don't make use of the fact that they're in this class with 20, 30, hundreds of other people. You can make use of that. And if you are someone who likes learning on your own, you can still learn on your own.
That's true.
No one's going to stop you. No one, if you want to study a topic that there's no class for, or you want to go a little farther ahead and maybe read some chapters in the book in your class that aren't assigned, you can do that. And especially if you have a light quarter or light semester, you're only taking 3 or 4 classes instead of 5 or 6, or it's the summer and you're working, maybe you can, study a little bit outside that.
That's a good point. That's a really good point, because you have that structure, right? And if you're self-taught, I know one of the biggest struggles I had was not knowing what to do next. And if you have that book, at least you have something that you can read ahead. Wouldn't recommend going to school for game dev. I'd say do comp sci and minor in it if that was offering. Costs way too high to waste. Yeah, that's a good point. Also, the library is such a huge asset. That's a great point too. There's so many resources that a university has that you just, at least 10 years ago when I was trying to get into game dev, I just didn't have. So, yeah, it was tough.
So those are all the advantages I see to going to school, other than just here's a degree. Now, there are a lot of cons to going to school too. I just mentioned working in a group, and I've talked. Being in school will teach you all the negative things about being in a group, which you will encounter when you get in the game industry. You have to work with a bunch of people.
Good point. Some
of these people won't do their job.
But if you can handle the cons of working in a group, which you're going to experience in school and in game dev, you're not going to handle it when you go to professional game dev, right? So that's a red flag. If you can't work past those or find ways past those, you're going to struggle.
A bunch of people. Some of these people won't do their job, and they will decry any attempt that anyone will point out they're not doing their job. They're literally not getting their work done, and they will hide that fact, and they will argue that they are, or they will argue they were given too much work. There's a lot of things that will happen. Yes, sometimes there's a really bad manager who threw too much work on someone, and then they got buried.
Yeah.
But there's usually more than one person on a project. The game director doesn't exist in a vacuum. He's got a boss. There are producers and APs. So I usually find that when people are in a group and they're complaining about other people in the group, it's not as bad in the game industry as it was at university. You're often assigned into a group by a teacher, and then at the end of the quarter or semester, you're like, here's our project. And there's nobody to deal with. There's nobody to go to except the teacher if you're having trouble with someone on the group. And this will happen. I guarantee you may have a few good groups, but eventually you're going to get in with a bad group, and there's going to be that one person who wants to coast, or the one person who's in over their head and doesn't know how to do what you're trying to do.
Especially since you're all juniors, right?
Another con of being at the university is you kind of have to go at the speed of the class. Now, yeah, you can read ahead and everything, but some people get bored at the rate at which a class is going, or they get overwhelmed quickly. You start a class and it's got a prereq, and you don't remember everything from that class. And now you're over your head. They're like, oh, God, they expected me to remember quaternions. Oh, shoot. The nice thing about studying on your own is you can go at your own speed. And that's good if you have that self-motivation to keep you going.
You can also pivot. I mean, I'm sure he's going to talk about self-taught after this, so I don't want to spend too much time talking about it until he gets there. But you can pivot. Whereas with a class, you can't. And so if you like, I still don't know how fucking quaternions work, but it's like if you get stuck in quaternions and you're self-taught, you can just say, okay, well, I'm going to go spend the next 2 weeks learning about what quaternions are and how I can use those to read the future with ChatGPT or something. And, I don't know what they do, but maybe they do that. And you can just do that. And then you can come back to continue with like some course you were doing or the project you were working on. And being able to pivot's nice. Not saying you should dress in dorky but clean clothes and adopt a bored, sleep-deprived look and bluff your way into university libraries, but you should probably do that. I'm kind of sad I didn't go to university, but I feel like if I went to university now, what I would do is I would take philosophy and I would just ask the most sensitive, difficult topics possible just to see how far I can push all the younger students right out of high school who haven't really experienced the world yet. I would just go to school to troll all the kids.
Another
And that's why I shouldn't go to school.
con of university is to get a degree, you have to take a lot of classes, and frequently you will find yourself in classes that you don't care about.
Yeah, they don't matter.
You know you're not going to ever use this. You're not interested in it, but you have to take it. And
which I hate.
I will tell you, I went to an engineering school for my undergraduate degree.
English class or something?
I was given a lot of classes and things. I'm like, thermodynamics is interesting, but I don't really care about it, and I don't see me using this as a programmer.
Yeah, there's a lot of that, at least in the US schools. I don't know if it's the same over in places here in Europe, but it's like you're going for a degree and you're forced to take some English degree, or some English class for a semester, but it's like it has nothing to do with what you're, like maybe you're in like a computer science class or something, and it depends on college to college, but I've seen it happen. It's like, what the fuck is the point of this? Like, this is not relevant to me. I'm just wasting time. I mean, did you just want me to spend more money or something because nobody takes English classes, so you just want to force people into it so you can charge more for semesters? Any workplace is slackers, and I'm not just saying that because I had to crawl around a 90-degree crawl space for 3 hours because the guy who abruptly quit installed the floor outlet wrong, and the inspector didn't catch it until after the house was sold. That's very specific. I'm sure you're very, that's just a coincidence. I'm convinced quaternions are SCPs designed to slow down science. Fuck, that's funny. I have no idea what they are.
But I had to take it because every engineering student had to take these 4 or 5 core classes their second year.
Weird. A lot of the community colleges I've noticed are different. Like you can specify, I only want to take this class from a community college. And it's like 1/5 the price of a full university. And you often get better teachers, and you only have to focus on that one class.
A big con of university is that you often aren't taught what you want or what you need to know.
Yep, very true.
When I was coming back to UCI to teach, and I was talking to Dan Frost, who I was co-teaching with, I said, by the way, I have a huge complaint about what I was taught at UCI because there were huge holes in my knowledge. I was never taught how to debug or how to optimize code. It never comes up.
Oh my God.
You're taught data structures and algorithms and neural nets and automata theory and all these different things, but no one ever says, hey, when you're going to code something that doesn't work, how do you fix it? Hey, you're going to code this and it uses too much memory or runs slowly. How do you fix that? No one teaches you that. When I mentioned it...
Well, Tim, every game that comes out is perfectly optimized these days. Come on. We know that, Tim, right? Oh, wait, what's that? Oh, no, most games that come out today are unoptimized pieces of garbage. Okay, oops. Got that one wrong.
To him, he said, yeah, a lot of professors here are against that. So I went to talk to the dean of the school, who used to be my thesis advisor. And his response was interesting. He said, it sounds like you want to make UCI into a trade school.
God forbid we teach people how to do things here in this university, right? The place for learning. God forbid we teach people how to do things in the world. What a stupid ass response. Oh, you want to turn this into a trade school? Well, it would be great if we taught people how to work.
I was like, no. But if you think even academic programmers don't need to know how to debug and optimize, that's insane.
Yeah.
I saw it happen. We got a supercomputer at UCI and it had like a gig of memory, and the first thing a physics teacher did, a physics professor for research, was he allocated a 1,000 by 1,000 by 1,000 array. Boom, all the memory's gone. Sparse arrays do exist. You could have used that.
That's funny.
Which gets me into another con of university. There's some really bad teachers. There are people who don't really have any connection to what degrees are used for in this day and age,
Yeah.
or they're just bad at getting their ideas across, or they're strict in ways that don't need to be and then aren't strict in places they should be.
Well, it's like not every knowledgeable person is a good teacher, right? And he's right, like stagnation happens. You're teaching for 20 years. Okay, but you haven't worked in the industry for 20 years now. So, and especially with game dev, can you imagine 20 years? What games came out in 2004? Games released 2004. Half-Life 2 and Far Cry. It's like, imagine you're, Jesus Christ, dude, what a year. Need for Speed Underground 2, San Andreas, Far Cry, Metal Gear Solid 3, Silent Hill 4, Doom 3, Halo 2, Half-Life 2. Wow, wow, what a year. Knights of the Old Republic. So it's like, yeah, if you've been working in the industry for, or you haven't worked in the industry for 20 years, what are you really teaching people? Like, games have changed so much. Love another Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. I would, but I don't know, GTA 6, people seem to love it or hate it. Any programming teachers I meet do what math teachers do and tell little stories about how complex their field is to get the respect they hope for, then go on to teach super basic stuff. Yeah, I don't know. It's like I said, I have some weird thoughts about teaching, but yeah, these are really good points. Lord of the Rings. You guys remember that Lord of the Rings Return of the King game? You guys remember this? Am I the only one? Maybe just me. That game was fire, though.
And let me tell you something. I had a teacher at University of Virginia who was so bad that we would get in arguments. I got a better grade in their class than they thought I should deserve, but they had to give it to me. I complained about this teacher to the dean while I was still there.
I have tenure.
And when I got my first alumni letter about donating, I said, I cannot in good conscience donate one dime to this school as long as teachers like this get tenure.
Tenure. Exactly what I said. And okay, this is going to be a hot take, okay? I fucking hate the power that some unions have, especially with teachers in such a critical position of society, that if you have a bad teacher but they're part of the union, they get this tenure bullshit that they can just be transferred to another school where they're going to do the same shit instead of being fired like they should. I hate that. I think that's absolutely absurd. I learned almost nothing from high school chemistry except for how to invest in real estate and structure my income to mitigate taxes. A lot of people love those LOTR games. Yeah, they were really good. Any good dev is going to teach themselves better than the intro courses at uni. They're all pretty bad, but they're designed to for people with no experience. That's true. It's like bad police officers in USA. Sometimes, yes. It also happens in game dev, right? Where you are supposed to protect your own kind because, you know, they're doing the same job as you, so somehow that means you're supposed to just support them no matter what. I mean, I get that a lot with game dev, where it's like, you're a game dev, you shouldn't be attacking other game developers. Why? If they're doing something stupid or they're hurting players, I'm going to speak out about it. I don't believe that I'm supposed to stay quiet. That's stupid. And yeah, I agree. It's like police officers protecting other police officers because it's, you know, your own, and you're going to get in trouble internally for being somebody that speaks out against bad behavior. Dude, fuck that. Someone from San Francisco originally, tenure is kind of useful because the only teachers they try to fire are the good ones. Really? Like, we had this ex-army PE teacher who the parents absolutely hated, but he was amazingly chill. Why did the parents hate him? You have to tell me that one.
So, I've had my bad experience, but don't get me wrong. I loved my time at the University of Virginia. That one teacher was so bad that it just left this, they made me hate math for a while. That's how bad they were.
Oh my god, I've been in the same situation with math. This was in high school, right? So a bit of a different experience, but I had a teacher who was so bad at math let me back up. The previous teacher I had in math was this by the books, older lady, very nice, but she was just okay. She wasn't mean or anything, but she was just okay. The teacher I had after that in math was the basketball coach, and he had way more interest in doing his basketball stuff during class than teaching us math. So it was read the next chapter in the book and do all the problems in that chapter. He didn't teach us, he just would do this next chapter. And then hand in your papers, I'll grade it, and you get the grade that you're given, and it's over. Next chapter. And he was so bad that I had a terrible score in his class. I hated him. I hated math. And I had to take a remedial math class after that, like a catch-up class. And holy shit, was that guy good. Mr. Purdy, if you ever hear this, if you're still alive, and I hope you are fucking aces, dude. He would assign us, it's some work to do, but he would handpick the questions from the book to give us. And they were usually 1 or 2 from each section. So instead of making us do 10 of each one, he would have us do 1 or 2 from that collection of 10. And then before grading our papers, you would go into his class and he would say, okay, did anybody have questions on last night's assignment? Okay, you had a problem with number 2 and number 10, you, number 13, number 16. Okay, we're going to do all of those on the board. Okay? And then afterwards, I will grade your papers. And you have the opportunity right now to properly follow along, copy down to the moment for moment what we're doing here on the board, and learn how to do it. And then I will grade your papers. So it was easy to get an A in his class because if you had a problem on any of the questions, you just said, yeah, I didn't understand how to do this one. He would do it for you on the board with you and go step by step. You could copy it down, and then he would come by and grade it. And he would sit with you after school if he needed it. He would explain everything. What a man. What a man. Amazing teacher. I had a math teacher that didn't speak the language, so they had to improvise. I don't know how good they were at math because I just decided not to go. Oh my god. Because of San Fran, he told the PTA he should be allowed to carry his gun to school in response to a news report about a school shooting. Also, he fought a guy that had some beef with one of his students. Okay, just sounds like a cool dude. Standing up for his students. Wanting to do what's good, even if you could argue that maybe bringing a gun to school was not the greatest thing to do. He had good intentions and he had training, so if I trusted anybody in a school with a gun, it'd probably be the ex-military guy. That's one of the cases where it's good to have that tenure.
They taught a math class, and they did such a bad job at teaching it, and were so unnecessarily mean that it just made me go,
By the way, this math teacher that I said was bad and was just a basketball coach, he once asked me in front of the class if I was on drugs. Like, seriously, just started interrogating me because I was really depressed in high school at that time, and I was like sleeping a lot, and it just kind of had this like vacant expression. And he just openly asked, like, are you on drugs? Bro, maybe send me to the medical, room and then ask this in private instead of in front of my colleagues. Okay?
I don't want to do. I just don't want to do math anymore.
In front of my friends and classmates,
my
colleagues.
So that can happen, and if it happens to you, my best recommendation is to try to compartmentalize it. I don't like that teacher, but I do like UVA, and I do like school.
Yeah. Bad teachers suck.
The final, the second to the last con I can think of is in this day and age, there are online videos that teach you almost anything.
Yep.
And you can learn it on your own, and as long as you don't need someone to talk to ask questions of, you can learn a lot more from videos and at your own pace than you can learn from school.
100%. And if you need somebody to talk to, you can come on this channel and you can ask questions. I know I mostly know about like design and production and stuff, but feel free to ask it. And I'm sure somebody in our chat has way more specialized knowledge than me about topics and can provide you with the right answer. And I think that's important. If you have any questions, especially about game design, love to answer it.
That's true for not just, like I've said, learning game engines, but learning code, art, any program or tool you want to use. There's probably a video that explains how to use it. So it makes me look at university and go, there's a lot of stuff I can already learn that you teach.
Mm-hmm.
Still think it's good, but maybe not as good. And then finally, the university is expensive. And trust me, I know that. I wouldn't use student loans when I was an undergraduate, and I did work study, and I got help from my mom. I still went into debt. When I went to grad school, that debt was suspended. And luckily, I did get a scholarship for grad school, and I worked as a TA and an RA, a research assistant, in grad school. But as soon as I graduated and went to Interplay, boom, all my student loans became due, and I found myself paying rent and a car payment and all the things you have to pay, and then student loans on top of that, and it was rough. It was rough. So I see why people want to avoid that.
That's
And
me.
so I hope giving this list of pros and cons makes you realize that deciding whether or not to go to school and where to go to school is a very personal thing. And for me, it's very similar to when people come to me at work and say they're thinking of quitting. I usually ask them why, like, what is it that's bothering you here, and what do you think you're going to get if you go somewhere else? Because I always warn them. The first thing I say is the grass isn't greener at other companies. What I see it as is different companies promote different things.
Yeah.
They're good at some things and bad at others. What you need to figure out
We're
is
good
what
with
you
everything.
care about. What do you really need in a work environment versus what you want and like in a work environment versus things that bug you or just annoy you so much that you can't work in a work environment that doesn't provide it. Some people want flexible hours. Some people demand work from home. Some people want good insurance. Some people want longer vacation, parental leave. These are all good things to have, but you have to realize some people don't care anything about those things. You may go, good people don't care about good insurance. I've met a lot of 20-somethings who don't have a primary care physician, don't go to the dentist. You know, they're still in that I'm immortal phase and I will never ever be hurt. They don't really look or care about good insurance. They may care about flexible hours and long vacation. Single people may never even glance at the parental leave that a company provides. Why would they care? So you have to realize this is a personal thing. What companies offer and what people care about are very different. So you may have a friend of yours go,
I don't believe I'm invincible. I don't have the money to afford it, so I have to be invincible. I can't get like a tooth problem. I can't have these issues because I certainly can't afford to handle it. Every year he started off the semester with an impromptu self-defense course that legally he should have gotten permission slips for, but he never did. That's amazing. I love that. Like 90% of Americans. It depends on the state. So each state has their own insurance companies and their own statewide. A lot of states have their own maybe all of them have their own statewide insurance. And so if you can't afford insurance in a lot of states, the state will provide you with free insurance, right? There's a lot of people that just don't get insurance. And then you had Obamacare, you know, the Affordable Care Act, which before that, at one point, was fining people for not being able to afford insurance. If you legally did not have enough money to afford the insurance for the Affordable Care Act, you were given a fine. Make it make sense. But yeah, there's a lot of problems with American healthcare. That's not going to be part of this video, but it is what it is, right?
I love it at this company. And you go there and you're like, this is terrible. The parental leave is awful. The insurance is awful.
Yeah.
And like, I don't care about that. So my recommendation is when you go to interview at a company, look for those things. Look for the things you care about. Figure out what you care about first, and then look for them, and then ask if you don't see it. Ask the people interviewing you if you have an opportunity. If you go to lunch and they bring some other employees, ask them. Take an opportunity to do that.
Yes.
This is exactly what I tell people to do about school. Figure out what you want to get out of it and what you need. If you need structure, if you need fellow people to work with, to study with, if you need an environment that is designed to help you study, you might want to go to school. If you want to learn at your own pace, if you can watch a video and go, I understand Unity now, I understand C#, you may want to skip school. But then when you go to a interview, I hope you bring along a demo. So those are my thoughts on school and the pros and cons of going there. For me, it was mostly a pro with some con. For some people, it's a lot of con. So that's my idea on school versus self-taught.
Yeah, that was another good video by Tim. I think he's really right. And I know, for instance, I think some of the people who watch my channel here do it because they like to have somebody working alongside them. Like maybe they work from home, but they like to have somebody on their other screen that they can watch work too, because it kind of It's like, okay, nope, they're still working, so I still need to work too, or, you know, they're pushing through the struggles of, I don't know, fluid flux, so I'm gonna push through my struggles too. And I think that's a cool aspect of Twitch. Personally, I like to watch you suffer over some wet boys, right? It's also usually the sort of gap between poor enough to qualify for free healthcare and too poor for insurance. Yes, you're very, very right about that. And that really, really sucks. One job I worked at had terrible insurance, a lifetime maximum of 10K. The fuck? Premium cost 10K a year? Make that make sense? Oh my god. That's so stupid. Either way, another fantastic video by Tim Cain, the legend, the myth, the man. I am going to have to get going there. I'm going to end the YouTube recording. Bye-bye, YouTube.